Hello, it's your man again, Diego Ife, and we're back with part 2 of the Lateness of the Hour series. And so this is the build up to the, shall I say, revolutionary 1960s. So just as a brief recap of what we covered in part 1, very brief. As we know, the economy and environment naturally impact social interactions. And of course, we saw how dating to varying degrees, or courting, however you want to describe it, took shape in the somewhat modern era. And of course, when we speak of modern era, typically tend to speak within the last few years. But I would say, from a historical perspective, that the modern era really started coming out from World War One, and that you've had changes in access to liberal opportunities and living your life a certain way based on the state of the economy, society, and I guess the state of foreign policy. In any case, let's get on with it. So, of course, that 1920s was a successful period which informed the freedoms that were assigned, and the US's economy, for example, grew by 42%. And mass production made consumer goods cheaper, so it wasn't just, for example, the clothing that the flappers or modern women liked, but it also included other clothing as well. And not just clothing, but just broadly speaking, the consumer goods that were available at that time. And again, of course, the flapper culture of consumerism was not just restricted to a subculture aspect or a marginal mainstream part of society, but it also broadly increased household debt. So as we came out from the liberal 1920s and for much of the 1930s and 40s, especially in the run-up to World War II, for that generation coming of age, which would have been those born in the 1920s, so I believe that was the greatest generation, right? Yeah, greatest generation. Popularity meant going out on lots of dates, where of course those are typically the offspring of the flappers, right? And popularity meant dating success, especially for women. Like many things, notions of popularity were gendered. For men, popularity was connected to material things, such as cars and nice clothes. For women, it depended on building and maintaining a popular reputation, i.e. social skills and elegance. Women had to be seen with many popular men in the right places. And women indignantly turned down requests for dates made at the last minute, which could be weeks in advance. This in turn cultivated an impression of being highly sought after. Now, having just one male suitor was fine if that was all a woman could get. However, a 1940 article in the Woman's Home Companion noted, "The modern girl cultivates not one single suitor, but lots of them. Her aim is not a too obvious romance, but general popularity." Now, dating became more about image and competition than romance. And etiquette books even cautioned against dancing with one partner for too long. Again, a big departure from the roaring 1920s and the Prohibition era, but I digress. Someone or several suitors needed to interrupt so that the woman did not appear to be a social failure. Yep, they really did care about image, and it's probably worth showing a clip. It's worth showing a clip that gives an idea into how the young couples at that time were being socialized to pursue romance and companionship and that type of thing.
Why does Martha have to have a party? Hard times party at that. What makes you think I'd like to bring Carol? Oh, Carol's all right. I don't have any fun at parties. Kids just aren't friendly.
Oh, Bill, that might be your fault.
I doubt it.
Maybe it's just that you don't know how to use social courtesy.
Social what?
Social courtesy, Bill.
Oh, that's old-fashioned.
What's old-fashioned about having fun at parties?
What's having fun at parties got to do with social courtesy?
If you give me a chance, I'll show you.
Go ahead.
All right. First, let's get you to Carol's house to call for her.
What? Well, okay.
Now go ahead and ring the doorbell. I'll stick around and help you out.
Wow. Hey, look, what's so special about this? I don't have to be courteous just to call for my date, do I?
Hi, Bill. What a costume. I'm nearly ready. Do you want to come in for a minute?
Nearly, huh? I'll wait out here. Don't take all night.
Hold it. Let's take a picture of this situation. Now look at that, Bill. Here Carol was trying to be friendly. And you said people aren't friendly. No, Bill. You discourage others when they want to be friendly.
So, yeah, I guess for the socially awkward, take note. But no, yeah, that just gives you a bit of an idea. But let's see the next part of the clip.
You'd better back up and start all over again. I don't think Carol's going to want to go out with you again unless you...
Huh?
Did I touch a sore spot, Bill? Well, maybe you'd better try to be more friendly this time.
Hi, Bill. Oh, that's quite a costume. I'm nearly ready. Do you want to come in for a minute?
Thanks, Carol. But I guess I'll wait out here, if you don't mind.
Well, all right. I won't be long.
How am I doing?
Better. But you might have gone inside if she asked.
Well, I wanted to check with you. Hey, say, wait a minute. Is this social courtesy, what I've been doing?
It's part of social courtesy. Just simple friendliness.
Here I am.
Let me help.
Thank you. Should we go? This will be a lot of fun tonight. It's all planned. And you go on and enjoy the party. Come with me, Carol.
All right, Bill, you're at the party. Now let's see you try some more social courtesy. I'll be right here to help you.
Thanks.
So as you can see, Bill's really taking instructions. He's taking initiative. And personally, I'm rooting for Bill. I hope we're all rooting for Bill. Go on, Bill. Let's do this.
About time. Hi, Bill. I don't know nothing. Cut it out. It's the way you go. Hey, look, I finally got the food. What do you say, girl?
But hello, Bill. How are you?
Okay, I guess.
Bill, aren't you going to learn? You're being very rude to Martha's mother. She thinks you're very impolite. Look at you sprawled out in that chair. You're supposed to rise when an adult speaks to you. Everybody knows that. Now, let's back up and try it again. And see if you can be polite. Oh, come on, Bill, sit up. That's a chair, not a bed. That's better.
Bill, oh Bill, oh Bill. It looks like you've got work to do, young lad. But no, as you can see, Bill clearly had work to do. And, you know, also from that time and capturing the spirit of that time, you can hear that they're very big on social etiquette. Maybe us people in 2025 might be able to take some cues from that. But in any case, let's continue.
Watch it now. Here she comes.
Well, hello, Bill. How are you?
Fine, thanks. I didn't expect to see you in costume. That's pretty clever.
Well, thank you. You did pretty well yourself.
Well, thanks. You like it?
I certainly do. There's Ellen. I want to see her. Have fun.
Well, now, wasn't that better? Look at the effect of a little politeness. You've had a very pleasant talk with Martha's mother.
Oh, she seemed friendlier than usual.
That's because you were friendly and courteous. Now you're getting the idea, Bill. Be friendly. Be thoughtful. What do you think of social courtesy now?
I guess it makes being with people a lot more enjoyable for me.
And more enjoyable for them, too. You've made a good impression on people here. Listen.
Isn't that the boy who used to be so rude?
Why, yes.
You hear that? She says you're not as rude as you used to be.
What do you know?
And look at Carol.
Bill is cute, so. Why, he's actually nice now. I'm glad I came with him, really.
Those few changes made a big difference, didn't they?
Yes, social courtesy does make a difference. And it's easy to learn. You can learn by watching others. And you can even get a book on courtesy from the library.
I might at that. Sorry I took so long. I had an accident.
Thank you. Bill, I'm having some of the kids over to my house next Saturday night. I'd like to have you come, too.
Oh, I don't... Sure. Sure, I'd like to come.
Good.
Thanks for asking me. Social courtesy does pay, doesn't it? Thanks.
And there you have it, ladies and gentlemen. That was how they train young people to socialize and be socially adept back in the 1950s. The 1950s was definitely an interesting period, especially when you consider what looks like a massive departure from a certain way of doing things to a very different way of doing things in the 60s. And let's dive into those factors: the politics, the popular culture, and also the sex revolution, and how all of those events became connected, indivisible. Without further ado,
The Adventures of Ozzie and Harriet, starring the entire Nelson family. Here's Ozzie. Here's Harriet.
And here it is, the American family of the 1950s, as it was seen thousands of evenings on TV. Happy kids, happy father, happy mother. Everyone behaving as they were supposed to.
You know, it's none of my business, but don't you think taking riding lessons is a pretty expensive way to meet a girl?
The message was absolutely unmistakable. This was the way your life should be. And if it wasn't, something must be very wrong.
This boy and girl coming home from school look quite content with life. They're looking forward to an important date, dinner at home with the family.
Though they seem artificial today, educational films like this one, which were shown to school children all over America, accurately reflect the attitudes and values of white middle-class society in the 1950s, when real-life documentaries were few and far between.
Doesn't that sound exciting to you?
Their purpose was to teach kids the proper way to behave, and to repeat and reinforce.
The rules were things you talked about on the telephone with your friends, and they were imposed by your parents. Parents talked about it a lot. There were high school counselors who told you what the rules were, and even if they weren't written down, everybody really knew, and you could almost read them out, cite them.
Everything young boys saw at home and on TV told them that if they did as they were supposed to, they would be, quote, lucky enough to follow in their father's footsteps.
The Cub Scout program helps the boys' adjustment both to the family and to the group.
The women of this family seem to feel that they owe it to the men of the family to look relaxed, rested, and attractive at dinner time. Brother notices the time and realizes that he must put things in order and clean himself up in time for dinner.
What were the rules? One of them was obey authority. Don't ask questions. In the 60s, millions of young people would renounce that one.
These boys greet their dad as though they are genuinely glad to see him, as though they had really missed being away from him during the day and are anxious to talk to him. This is the time for pleasant discussion in a thoroughly relaxed mood. They don't pick this time of the day to spring unpleasant surprises on Dad.
We are molding our boys the way we feel they should be molded in the 50s. I think you have to start molding right away when they're just infants. And so that was our influence. We tried to make this a very influential time, a constructive time, through Boy Scouts, through church, through Cub Scouts, through Little League, or not Little League, but the little pony leagues or whatever they had, you know, these little kids. It was awfully cute. Yeah, they were fun times with our kids, with our boys. We had a great time.
Another rule, control your emotions. In the 60s, masses of baby boomers would reverse this one and, quote, let it all hang out.
Oh, I'm so happy. I could be a model or a cover girl.
Hey, what's gotten into that crazy kid's sister?
Oh, Jeff, don't be that way.
Notice how Mother seems to become angry herself because of Jeff's anger. Perhaps she shouldn't, but anger is a violent emotion, and we often see an induction of behavior or spread of emotion to other persons, almost like a contagious disease.
And of course, what would be the consequences of not following these rules?
Many young people found these restrictions painfully repressive, but they struggled to obey them anyhow because if they didn't, they knew there'd be unpleasant consequences from society or from their peers.
Though it would be easy to buy into the image that was portrayed by the US about the 1950s and its virtue, let's just say not all elements of society were content with the way things were going. And the following clips speak to that.
Now here's a major seed of the 60s. Because of their profoundly different life experiences, kids had trouble understanding why their fathers worked so hard. The way many of them saw it, their fathers were engaging in the single-minded pursuit of material comforts.
My dad was always above board in all his business dealings, but I would say money and getting ahead and making a lot of bucks was his goal. And I think what it was Dad meant well. Dad wanted to love us, but Dad was so busy at work. He would work till 2, 3 in the morning doing artwork for the business. He'd get up early and be gone. I hardly ever saw him.
So just from the clips that we've seen so far, it's evident that a lot of the youth that were coming of age in the 50s, or on their way to coming of age in the 50s, had this resentment for the absence of their father and him having to bring home the bacon, to use an English term. But let's see really what informed the mindset of their parents, and were they as draconian as they have been portrayed? Let's look into
those
that.
of us who brought the baby boom into being, the returning World War II veterans, we didn't know what the hell we were doing. I mean, we really didn't know. We all came home and we all had children. There was no advice, really. Dr. Spock had a book out, but we didn't know anything about child rearing. In other words, let me try to say it this way. There were certain things that you just did.
Today is a high point in the romance of Bob and Mary. For them, the future looks bright.
We didn't know anything about relationships, communication between husband and wife. There was very little communication. children, child rearing, how do you raise children? No one knew. In other words, it was supposed just to happen.
George Leonard and other members of his generation may not have known how to raise their children, but they did know that they wanted to protect them from the tough times they had experienced.
The parents of the 1950s were, I think, the most unusual generation of the 20th century. These are the people who had grown up in the Depression. They had experienced real tough times when they were children and when they were teenagers. And then World War II hit, as many of them were just reaching adulthood, and they had the trauma of the war. And then, after all that, they reached the 1950s at a time when the U.S. was tremendously prosperous, when the economy was booming as we've never seen it before. And I think they reacted to that prosperity, and I think they reacted strongly to all of the trauma of the Depression and the war by turning inward a bit, by marrying young, by emphasizing home and family, as if that was something they couldn't get back in the 30s and 40s and now valued all the more.
And this is Levittown. Here you can own your own home, complete with its own refrigerator, television set, and clothes dryer. You can raise your children far from the city's dirt, crowding, and crime, in comfort and safety.
Growing up in the suburbs, nearly 70% of white middle-class baby boomers spent their childhoods in these totally new communities. For these young people and their older brothers and sisters, this environment would have an enormous impact on how they would behave in the 60s.
It was a perfect setting in which the youth culture, in a certain sense, could blossom. Life in the suburbs was organized around the kids again. They were the center of attention, endless round of Little League games and PTA meetings, etc. So it was in the suburbs, in a certain sense, that this message about the importance and the uniqueness and the generational potency associated with these kids, I think, was delivered with real force.
In the average American family today, children are the object of more concentrated thought and concern than the young of any previous generation. For out of an increasing understanding of child psychology has come an awareness that children are real people with individual personalities which must be respected and encouraged.
This was a distinctly new way to be raised in the world. And it allowed for a whole generation that I suppose we would now call spoiled kids, which from another point of view simply meant kids who had very high expectations in life with respect to freedom and happiness. They thought life was about being free and about being happy. And they carried those expectations forward into high school and into college, and brought with them a kind of a level of expectation that was simply unprecedented in, I would say, in world history.
We found out in the 50s that if you got up in the morning and went to work and did a good day's work, that things got better. You got promoted or you got more money, you were able to buy furniture, you could have more children, the children could have better clothes, and life just improved. We knew it was because you went to work. But I'm not sure our children realized that. They saw simply that the clothes got better, the house got bigger, the neighborhood got nicer. And I have a strong suspicion that what happened in the late 60s was that the kids who rebelled took it for granted that life would improve automatically.
Now here's a major seed of the 60s. Because of their profoundly different life experiences, kids had trouble understanding why their fathers worked so hard. The way many of them saw it, their fathers were engaging in the single-minded pursuit of material comforts.
So as we can see from the recent clips that I've just shown, it is very clear that the order that was being projected and the one which was being followed was just these, what we call a silent generation coming of age and looking to do the best that they could. So they were very malleable to US government interests at that time, the war against communism. And so they were doing their bit by being patriotic, and they liked and felt a sense of reward in being able to give their children the kind of things that they didn't get. However, such was the level of privilege, they clearly could not make the connection between the sacrifice that their parents undertook, which you can make an argument that they'd done their best with what they had, and also making sense of what came with the territory of pushing for more liberalism and a loosening of the straitjacket of what was deemed the 50s. But again, the 50s is far more complex than many certainly give it credit. Oh, and of course, another thing. What I find very interesting is just how contradictory people can be. And like I said, I guess the curiosity of wanting to see what it would be like to loosen those strings definitely would have got the better of these youth on their way to coming of age, certainly. But the problem with freedom, is it parameterized freedom? Is it freedom that's to run rampant? Because naturally you're going to find instances of hypocrisy. So I think it would be good to see the attitudes that were going to be carried forwards, why there was such this burning desire expressed by the youth, and also what did it mean for gender roles, and also takes on relationship, because of course the parents of the silent gen didn't know what they were doing, and given the borderline contempt for following rules which was suppressed, what can one do? The suppression would almost be like a pressure cooker effect erupting, as will shortly be evident.
My impression of that time was that a child was to be seen and not heard, and that we were never allowed to express anything that was negative. We were never allowed to talk back in any way, even to question why should I do something or could I do it later. We weren't treated as if we were people. We were another species.
One watched Ozzie and Harriet and assumed that everyone they knew lived that life. And then they went around pretending that they lived it too. But no one really did. Even Ozzie and Harriet didn't. So on some level, there's been a myth all along. And part of the plague of the 50s was the incredible personal efforts, the incredible pain involved in perpetuating that myth about one's own family, about one's own happiness in that family, about the health of that family.
Isn't it wonderful how this washer does all these heavy things?
And what did girls feel was in store for them? A life just like their mothers.
Judy, it isn't as bad as all that, dear.
Sorry, Mother. I was just thinking.
About what?
Oh, you know, thinking how awful wash day used to be for you before you had the electric water heater and the washer.
So now I add the pectin.
Educational films like this one reflect society's belief that women could find fulfillment only as housewives and mothers.
Now I let it come to a full rolling boil again. It won't take long.
You like to cook, don't you, Pat?
Oh, it's not just liking to cook. It's more. It's accomplishing something. It's me cooking. Me, Susan Douglas. And not just cooking, but, well, creating something special. Oh, I wish Miss Holland could talk to you. She could say it so much better than I can. Who's Miss Holland? She's my home economics teacher.
Now, I just want you to capture what I just showed you, that clip. I want you to really just capture the image of it. And, of course, for many latter-day feminists and their narratives about patriarchy, this is gold dust for them, this type of clip. And that's okay, because given the narratives and how much they've been systemically regurgitated and distributed and rediffused. I think it would be good to get an idea of how the men felt at that time and what their roles were like, and really put this idea of patriarchal boogeymen under the spotlight, because let's just say life is never that straightforward. So without further ado,
this son of yours has been fighting again. Look at this shirt. Can I tell you about it, Pop? Look, he's proud of it. Please, Pop.
Not now, Jerry. I'm tired. I had a
Mike
bad
Kelly
day.
said you didn't have the guts to stand up for yourself, so I took a poke at him. That was all right, wasn't it? Mike.
What TV showed you was a world in which men were essentially impotent.
He didn't have any right to say that about you, did he, Pop? Go to your room and get a decent shirt. This minute. Did he, Pop?
There were no chance for risk. There was no place for excitement. There was no place for no challenges being offered whatsoever. And the other kind of show you could watch were the Westerns, which showed what a real man could do, measuring himself against other men, especially with a gun. And I think that anybody who was a red-blooded American boy in the 1950s knew that they wanted to be more like Matt Dillon, or more like the paid gunfighter in Have Gun Will Travel, than they wanted to be Beaver Cleaver's father.
So let me get this right. And in case we were mistaken, making American men appear to be what? Impotent. Emasculation. These instances are very much at odds with the narrative of patriarchy. That I can tell you. But we're also going to see yet another clip which further goes against the narrative of patriarchal boogeymen.
Today's American male, if the experts are right, has even lost much of his bedroom desire or initiative and control. Some authorities believe that his capacity is being lowered. More women are taking charge of bedroom relations, and they now have 3 new weapons to make their control effective. Hi, welcome back to Far From Eden. That is where we left off last Saturday. And when it says today's American male, it means 1958.
Listen, the first thought that came to my mind when I saw that was maybe Kevin Samuels was correct when he said modern men are operating under 1950s manuals, or manuals on dating from the 1950s. Yeah, so as you can see, despite the narratives of conservativeness and uprightness and people being shackled from being able to express oneself, don't worry, we're about to see some more, but now you've seen it, so don't worry, we're getting there. Soon enough, all of these things will be made clear. So
I am already absolutely floored with how far gone we already were, and just how social scientists, anthropologists, all of these experts already knew that men were being treated as second-class citizens.
I hope you heard what she said. It was well known in the circles that it needed to be in that men were being treated as second-class citizens. That should be evident so far, you understand, and it certainly plays a part in actually understanding the landscape, but it's important that I show these clips to really drive home the message. So
that the scales were being tipped and that women were taking over, taking control in 1958. So we left on that cliffhanger of the 3 new weapons to make their control effective. Here we go, you guys. Are you ready? Whew. First, as noted earlier, women condition men before marriage to the rule that the girl regulates all physical contact.
Sound familiar? In any case, we're going to revisit that particular quote because it does tie in with certain things. And when I say revisit it, it will be after some subsequent parts. But we are going to come back to it because it's very important. And it also flies in the face of many latter-day narratives. So let's continue.
Because remember earlier we talked about, in this book, it talked about how dating is brand new, going steady is brand new, and how it's basically like making out is new to culture and society, and that the girl decides who does what and when, and that the guy's role is just to try to get as much as he can. The rule persists in married life. Dr. McHugh says, some women I have counseled even put their husbands on a budget of bedroom fun relations. On a budget.
One consistent theme, which I believe I've cited directly and indirectly, is that there's nothing new under the sun. And yeah, like I said, there's a fair bit to cover. But what I will say, as you heard, is that men have been being put under manna for ages. And yeah, this flies in the face of the idea that men were predators and all this other stuff. Because yeah, it's very, very, very overdue and high time that the truth be told. Anyway, let's continue.
I know some of you are like, well, that'd be more than I ever got. That's disgusting. Not you guys, they are, for withholding it. Second, women have now gained an important share of couples' decision over birth control.
I want you to keep in mind that that book was written in 1958. And it is obviously some years before contraceptives were made widely available to people that weren't married. And also, of course, termination as a means of birth control. So already in 1958, it had been established that women had gained control over reproductive choices. And of course, that would have been informed by developments a few decades prior with the likes of Margaret Sanger and so on and so forth, and a lot of her work in that area. So it's very important that we do take this into account. But again, let's continue.
They are being taught, as Maxine Davis, writer on women's problems. Sorry, that's funny. Women's problems. We have so many problems. My little dog Lola is wanting her dinner. So that reminds me to ask you guys, please like the video, subscribe to the channel if you haven't already, and share the show with your favorite feminists. Okay, writer on women's problems has stated that, quote, contraception should be one of women's continuing major sexual responsibilities. Although the actual decision to conceive children is usually a joint one, women at last have the means to enforce.
If I may ask a favor, please tell me if the word expressly used, and I quote, enforce. So this is a publication released in 1958 that had already been discussing this power dynamic, if you will, from a few years prior. So as we covered in part one, the era of the flapper, a more liberal world, so on and so forth, it doesn't really appear as if that culture completely died down, as we will see over the course of this series. It doesn't sound like it did. So please tell me if the word enforcement, women being able to enforce their will, and patriarchal evil boogeyman that truncates women's liberties and autonomy, if these are reconcilable. Because frankly speaking, there are odds. And it also is consistent with that, is it Schrodinger's feminism, where you're a victim and you're a goddess all at the same time.
Sorry, that's just wrong. The fact that she would be enforcing anything but to enforce a unilateral decision against conception. Yeah, that's brand new in 1958. It was, you get married and you have the babies you have. And this was when they started to control it. And we're so accustomed to that being the right thing to do and the responsible thing to do. But I'm not sure that's right. I'm not sure. In fact, I'm definitely not sure. I definitely don't think it's the right way now. But I think that's the way that the state, the overlords, would have us believe, because population control. Okay, enforce a unilateral decision against conception. When the oral pills now being developed become available, women's confidence in sex relations will increase and men will have still less control over conception. Wow. If that wasn't a prediction, I don't know what is. Women's confidence in bedroom fun relations will increase. Well, I guess you could call it confidence. You could also say, wow, there are a lot of 304s everywhere you look. They're real confident. They're something. And I wouldn't call it confident. I'd call it highly immoral. Finally, and perhaps most important, the modern male is being directed toward a new goal in hanky-panky relations. Marriage advisors warn him that he is no longer to concentrate on his own pleasure.
Boy, oh boy, oh boy. Did we just hear that? Men are supposed to stop having fun in terms of tending to their own interests and hobbies. Keep in mind, we're talking about the man at the time who was a very hard worker, continually at work. If his children are not resenting him somewhat for his absence, then it's going to be his wife and elements of society who don't want him to enjoy some small pleasures. So there's something that a lot of men say of all different persuasions, different creeds, different generations in the present day, that women don't like seeing men happy. They don't like seeing men enjoying themselves with activities which the women aren't involved in. So whether that's watching football, for example, or sports, depending on what kind of sports you're interested in, or motorcycles, cars, you name it. You know, you notice that many women do problematize men's interests, and that shows, and we're going to go into it later, but it shows not only what I call gendered over-familiarity, but it speaks to the idea that this social experiment, where we're in very close proximity to each other, like we have been, is questionable. I mean, the wisdom behind it is questionable, but as we know, life is not straightforward. It's very complex, and so, yeah, let's continue.
He must concern himself primarily with satisfying his wife. Okay, we're going to go there. To the point, oh my gosh, to the point is Ms. Davis' edict to wives in The Sexual Responsibility of Woman. Quote, the wife must make her husband realize, as he gladly will, how important it is that she be satisfied. She must be wholly satisfied. She must be wholly satisfied. She cannot accept compromise.
Remember, 1958, and they're already encouraging Already encouraging women to lack compromise. So, as we saw in one of the previous clips, that the myth that was being portrayed was exactly that, the whole 2.4 nuclear family, picket fences, the kind of stuff in the present day that a lot of content creators and people at large reminisce. And it's a myth, as we can see, because they were certainly preparing the women and the generations to come for how the world was going to look. But anyway, let's continue. This is some very revealing stuff, so let's continue.
Why must it be so adversarial? Why is it a battle? She must not accept compromise. You can see how it is right now with dating relations and expectations and the way you guys are treated and the way women want to be domineering over you and boss you and decide how things are going to go. This all set the stage for it. And we'll probably find an older book, older writings that, say even more how what set the stage for this, because they're always moving it. They're always trying to destroy the family, and they do as much as they can to cause that destruction. And then when the people resist, they wait. But this was definitely to control. This is all to control men. They use women to control men. Even though it is understood that male and female responses are not all identical, definitely not, many specialists insist that it is the male's responsibility to bring about mutual and simultaneous satisfaction every time. Simultaneous. Come on, guys, get it together. Why is everything always the man's responsibility? Because this is about more than bedroom fun. This is about, it's up to you guys. It's her happiness is your responsibility, whether you're in the bedroom or somewhere else. And if she's not happy, well, it's your fault.
Fellas? I've got a question for you. Based on what you just saw, is that remotely appetizing to you? Is it something which men en masse, single men, unmarried men, divorced men en masse should be signing up for? Tell me. This sentiment, it brings a few things to mind, but let's say I can show you better than I can tell you. Brothers, in the comment section, I want you to indicate what resonates with you. The idea of devotion along the lines of what that manual is stating, or is it the alternative? Tell me, what resonates with you more? The message that was in that book, or is it some of the lyrics, the messages conveyed in the moment? Yeah, the thrill is gone, baby. Tell him, bravo. The thrill is gone away. Go, baby. You know you done me wrong, baby. Done me wrong. And you're gonna be sorry someday. You have a good brother. Thrill is gone. Yeah. The thrill is gone away from me. It's gone, it's gone. Oh, the thrill is gone. dark. Get my Harley right off in the sunset. Take my word for it, place it on the bed. I know I'm beat. Just having some admits, yeah.
Thrill is gone. The thrill is gone away for good.
Is it good? Is it temporary?
Oh, the thrill is gone, baby.
You decide, baby.
The thrill is gone away for good.
You wanna chase the man away.
I know I'll feel it all one day, baby. Like I know a good man should.
That's what's up. A good man, not the.
I'm free from your spell.
Did you hear that?
Hey, I'm free, free, free now, baby.
I'm brothers.
I'm free from your spell.
Your spell, it fell.
I know that it's all over.
Over, like I
All
told you.
I can do is wish you well.
Got the courtesy.
We don't
No
want you to
hard
clap your hands.
feelings. Yeah.
I say we don't want you to clap your hands.
We want you to leave.
I said we don't want you to clap your hands.
Leave.
Unless you feel it. If you feel it, then go for yourself. It's all right. If you feel it like you sound, I'll have to do just a little bit more. All right. You know I'm free now, baby.
Free.
I'm free from your spell.
No more marriage traps.
Hey, I'm free, free, free now, baby.
Brothers, you decide.
I'm free from your spell.
Freedom or biology.
I know that it's all over. All I can do is wish you well.
Go figure. Hope you don't mind indulging me. You know, this is a bit of a heavy-ish topic and a bit of like relief, comedic slash a bit of goofiness. You know, surely adds to it. But no, let's get back into it. I just thought that we could have a bit of fun before we delve back into it. So let's continue.
But from what I know about men, most of them, especially in the husband-wife relationship, they want you to feel good. And like I said, it's not just about the bedroom. Like, men want their wives to be happy. Men want their women to be happy. They want that because they care. This whole idea that you have to teach men to care about if a woman is happy is a lie. It's just a lie. That's not your all's nature. And that's a foundation, I think, with misunderstanding what men are really about. I shouldn't say that. The overlords, the state, the men, the betas, they know what men are about. They know men can love. But what was taught to us, even here, is that you can't, that you're selfish, etc. Yeah. And that's not been what I have experienced with men and the way they love and the way they think. It's not who they are. But when you just consume all of this sort of, propaganda growing up and seeing movies and television shows and everything, trying to redefine what a man is and make him our enemy, our oppressor, you set the stage for all of this dysfunction.
As the good lady just said, there's been no evidence of patriarchy, patriarchal abuse, patriarchal exploitation of women. None of it. Very much the contrary, to be honest. And And that concludes part 2. Thank you for listening, and stay tuned for part 3 as we delve into the events of the 60s revolution and beyond. Thanks for listening, and till next time.